Welcome to Play by Players, an MLSPA podcast. This show is brought to you by the players and is all about the players, both past and present, who have plied their trade in MLS. You'll hear about each player's journey into the game, their careers and life after the game, on the field and off. It's all on the table. Now here's your host, former MLS player, Bobby Boswell.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Play by Players. Today we are joined by a 10-year professional player. He played in the USL, what's called the A-League then, but the USL. He played in MLS. He was a member of the U.S. men's national team. He is a member of the class of the 2015 East Carolina University Hall of Fame, the class of 2015 State of North Carolina Hall of Fame, joining the likes of the greats in the game of soccer like Carla Overbeck, Eddie Pope, Roy Lassiter, Will Hesmer, Eddie Robinson, Tab Ramos, Cindy Parlow-Cohn, Logan Paz, and Mia Hamm, to name a few. He is a two-time Supporter Shield champion and a U.S. Open Cup champion. He's played over 250 professional games across all competition. Please welcome to the podcast, my friend, Clyde Simms.
Thanks for having me, Bob. Thanks.
What's going on, man? How
Not
you doing?
much, eh? I'm doing well. Yeah, maintaining. I think trying to get through this virus like everyone else is. Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at your we talk a lot on Instagram, and today I looked at some of the old photos, and they're not that old, but you have pictures with your shirt off, and I went straight to the gym right after work. I did 100 sit-ups. I did 100 sit-ups just to try to embrace the healthy body that you have. And I don't.
try to be an inspiration, Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're good. It's working here. So I was excited when you said you do this. I think you're one of the most lovable guys we'll probably have on this podcast. I tell people I've never met anyone that didn't like being around you. And that includes Stephen DeRoe, who you used to make fun of for dancing anytime music was on. So, you have one of the most contagious laughs of anyone we've ever had on. And the goal is to get that laugh to come out during this interview.
We'll see. If anybody can do it, I think it's you.
All right. Well, first, I want to say hi to some of your family members. I know I got to know Kendra and Cabria when we played together. So hi to the sisters, your twin sisters that are listening. And that starts us where you're from in North Carolina, Jamestown.
Yep.
It's kind of, for those that don't know, it's between High Point, Greensboro, Winston-Salem. I know you have the Research Triangle in Raleigh. Do you have a triangle for where you're from? Is it called something cool like that?
We were like the Piedmont. It wasn't like a district. It was just called Piedmont. Yeah, that was it. So it was like Jamestown, High Point, Greensboro, and Winston-Salem.
Okay.
Where Farce is. Yep.
Well, the important thing is that's a really big hotbed. I know I named some of those people from the Hall of Fame. Those are household names in American soccer. Talk to us a little bit about North Carolina being a real hotbed for soccer when you were growing up.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, when you're growing up in an area, it wasn't until we got older playing soccer and traveling with soccer that we saw other areas, So all we knew was North Carolina. And after traveling around, it was great. I mean, if you think about the weather was awesome. You could play soccer for most of the year, and that's great. Obviously, the more I live up in Boston now, and like there's a long part of a lot of the year where it's not feasible. So we were lucky to be down in North Carolina with the warmer weather, and with warmer weather we had great fields. Bryan Park, I know a lot of guys probably played there because it was like, when I was growing up, it was like the best place to play. It had probably almost 20 fields, and all of them were just as good as any field we played in professionally. It was awesome.
So very, very similar to the RFK auxiliary field then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. At times that field was nice, but it was cool. And we also didn't know how good we were until we started playing like tournaments. Like when I was growing up, we won state cup one season, right? And then after that one season, and it wasn't a fluke, but it wasn't like we weren't favored to win for sure, and we won. And then every good player in the area, and then players were traveling from like an hour away, 2 hours away, Many of the guys listening probably know Will Hessmer. Will Hessmer lived an hour away, or probably like an hour and a half away, and he came to our team. We beat his team in the final, and all the good kids from that team came to our team, and then we just became a powerhouse, like little old Jamestown, and we won state, I think, every year until I graduated high school. After that,
I was going to say, and you were the Jamestown Jammers, is that right?
Yep, Jamestown Jammers, yeah, and it's such a small town that after a while we had more age groups, but after a while it was like just us. It was just our age group, Jamestown Jammers, and then that was it.
Well, no, it sounds like y'all are ballers. I think for those that listen to this podcast, we focus a lot on the mascots, and the you have some pretty cool ones, as we'll see as we go forward. But the Jamestown Jammers, if there was like a thing that would describe Clyde really well, like the Jammers is definitely a team name.
Jammers, yeah.
And you kind of mentioned how good y'all were up through high school. You were a two-sport athlete and pretty good at basketball. Not many people, it's funny. My roommate in college played basketball up until high school or through high school. And, you played basketball as well. It's not really common with soccer and crossing over, but talk to me a little bit about being a basketball player.
Yeah. So the way I started playing soccer, my dad was a basketball guy. He knew nothing about soccer. Growing up, they didn't have soccer. They didn't offer it, not even in schools. And so he was a basketball guy. When I got to the age where I could play sports, basketball season was probably 4 or 5 months away. And he wanted to get me into something immediately. So soccer was about to happen, put me in soccer. But he, like I said, he was a basketball guy. And so I was playing basketball every single year. I was actually better at basketball growing up than I was at soccer growing up. And then I think, and I talk to my dad about this all the time, I gravitated towards soccer because basketball, like we would, on the way to the game, during the game, after the game, he was like on my case about it, everything, because he knew basketball. He was a basketball guy, and he knew I had a lot of potential. And then with soccer, he was silent. All he did was support. I score a goal and he'd be real excited and cheer, but other than that, he didn't know anything. So he didn't say anything. He didn't have anything to say. And so I think we talk all the time, and that's the big reason why I gravitated towards soccer. But I was like starting point guard for the varsity team, like sophomore, junior year. I stopped playing after junior year. I didn't play senior year because I had already basically got my scholarship to go play soccer at East Carolina University. I didn't want to risk injury. So I realized I wasn't tall enough. I'm only 5'9", and so I gave it up.
Well, and he was your basketball coach, right?
You growing up, yeah,
for a long time, but he didn't coach. I know your family was always really active and coming to all your, anything they could. So I know he didn't coach you in soccer, but he was always there.
Well, he was actually my first coach, Bob. Sorry. So first rec team, he got he volunteered and he was the first coach. He had to buy the books to learn the rules and stuff like that. But after that first year, he was done. He was done. But yeah, so he coached one season.
Did he want you to play basketball as well, or was he okay with you making a decision to just go soccer?
Well, once I'll never forget, we were in the car, and let me back up a little bit. I almost quit soccer when I was a little bit younger to pursue basketball. And I remember I was in the car with my dad, and then we got home and we called my coach. And then right after we got the phone, I was like, nah, I changed my mind. I want to keep playing. So we called him back, and then I continued to play soccer. But I kind of, it was just back and forth. And you got to an age where you kind of had to choose. I mean, now kids, they can't even, I mean, kids basically play one sport nowadays. It's crazy. And then they're not even allowed, they play at a certain level. They're not even allowed to play other sports. It's wild. But I think having playing two sports growing up allowed me to continue to love soccer as much as I did growing up. It wasn't like such a burden.
Yeah. And I know you talked about almost quitting. I think it was, we can move to high school. And wasn't did your club coach become your high school coach? Did I do my homework right on that, or is that wrong?
For soccer?
Yeah.
I had two different coaches. Yeah.
Okay.
Two different coaches. Yeah. But he was our coach all the way through until our junior year in high school. So ever since we were kids with the Jammers, and he stayed with us all the way through.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know he was all about fun, which is, we always try to tell people, make sure your kid, everyone that's on this podcast loves soccer, and, they make it about having fun. And it sounds like you're a guy to that. How do I pronounce your high school? Southwest Guilford High School? Is that?
Yeah, that's it.
I got it right.
You got it.
And your mascot at Guilford was the Cowboys and the Cowgirls.
Yeah, Cowboys, Cowgirls.
It sounds
who else
sounds more like Texas than North Carolina.
It does, yeah, for sure. And who else went to Southwest?
Well, I know Eddie Pope went there.
Eddie did, yeah.
Oh, don't worry. I look up all the alum.
Okay.
The first thing I do is make sure you're on the notable alum, and if not, I submit a request to get you added. But you're on there, and there's some interesting people on there. There's some NFL and some WNBA players, and the interesting one, only because I know you and your affinity towards music, is Adam Lazara, who's the Taking Back Sunday vocalist. So
yeah.
We'll get into that a little bit later about music, but that was interesting. So you talk about almost. I kind of been looking things up. It looked like you had a couple phases where you were like not sure if you were going to keep going or not. Looks like you kind of made a decision on when you went to college. It was all about playing time. Is that kind of accurate, that you were more concerned with where you were going to be active and playing, and you weren't about this sitting on the bench stuff?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was a little bit of that. And to be perfectly honest, I went on a visit and I had a lot of fun at ECU, and I was sold. That was like one of the first visits I went on, and they were going to give me basically mixed with a little bit of academic and minority. I was basically getting a full scholarship, and talked to my dad, and it was like the perfect distance away from home. It was like 3.5 hour drive at the time, and we were just I was just sold on it after my visit, and I knew I did know that I was going to play. The program was fairly new. The coach, he brought in a ton of us freshmen that year, and all of us, like, that was the big thing. We were going to get to play and get minutes and get a lot of attention, and I think that's where I really developed in college. We weren't very good, but I really developed it, and I think I had buddies that went to other schools, big time soccer schools, and they didn't play till their junior, senior year, and by that time they stopped loving the sport. And I was in a bit of what I thought a bit of better position. So
I know you said that you enjoyed the visit, you had fun on the trip, but were you pretty, I know you as, people think you're shy. I think from afar, you're reserved, and, it's just one of those, once I get to know you, we know how you are. But as far as the way you play it, it's also not real flashy, meaning you're very efficient, and, you connect and you do things really well in that regard. Did you feel like you were recruited to places you should have been recruited, or was it one of those where, it was just like you believed in yourself and you found a coach that believed in you? Talk to me about the recruiting process.
That was a big thing. I think the coach really sold me. A lot of the big time schools, I got just letters, right? No, not even a phone call or anything like that. And even on my club team, I wasn't even, I was one of the top players, but we had a really good club team, and we go to different tournaments, and where college coaches would show up. And I wasn't like you said, a standout player. I would get a couple of letters from some ACC schools back then, but our coach at ECU, like, he was, calling. He had this plan, and I loved his plan. We have an East-West game, all-star game in North Carolina, right? And we probably had, it was like 9 of us that were going to be freshmen at East Carolina, and we were really excited about it, and we were, going to try to build something there that didn't exist, and I like that aspect too. And yeah, the coach had us sold, and it was. I think that played a big role in it. Sorry.
Well, no. So, what's the mascot at ECU? The Pirates.
The Pirates. Yeah.
So,
but hey,
if we're keeping track, you're a jammer, you're a cowboy, and you're a pirate at this point.
Purple and gold. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. But you talk about, you said you weren't very good, but it kind of makes sense now. Why you were a 3-time captain for the team. Captain as a sophomore, it sounds like that's pretty big accomplishment. And crazy stat is 73 games in college. You only missed one game.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, you kind of I talk about a little later about some of your time with DC where you kind of became an Iron Man. You know, but just talk to me a little bit about, you got some conference honors. You know, you are close to home and that you do have some family support, but do you start believing at this point in college, you know, the team's not a perennial powerhouse, but do you start believing that you have what it takes to play at the next level?
Yeah, no, not at all. So but you and I came out the same year. And back then, if you remember, the recruiting was, and the scouting was basically just top schools. You know, you had to be really lucky. So the most I would get was maybe like second team all conference at the end of the year. It was almost like it was almost like I was like the standout player on ECU, and we would finish like second or last in Conference USA basically every year. But I was like the standout player, so they had to give us something, you know. And so I would end up being like second team. Second team was the highest. I think I might have got third team a couple of times. But I in that one game that I missed, I believe it was the last game of my career there. I got injured. I hurt my knee. I just got like an MCL sprain. And so I majored in construction management. And I thought that I was set. I was about to start an internship. At the end of it was that my 4 years was up, and I had to do my 500 hours to get my degree. And I was setting it up to start that, and then I was just going to get a job in construction, and then be done with soccer. And my coach at the time, he wasn't letting that happen. And he was like, I really believe that you can play at the next level. What that level is, I'm not sure, but I know I really believe, you know, I see kids come out and do it all the time, and I really believe you can do it. So he forced me to go to Richmond Kickers. Were having just a weekend walk-in tryout, and it was exactly that. Like, you had all kinds of people showing up to go to that tryout. And then but let me back up. We applied for the MLS Combine. And nothing. I didn't get anything. Nothing back. I don't even think they answered it. Yeah, it was. I don't even think I got like a no, not this year type thing. Just nothing back. And so, you know, my coach made me go to this tryout. I went, and the coach Lee Calishaw at the time offered me a contract, and so I still had some school left. I had like a semester left. And I told him that I would love to, you know, finish. But at that time, the A-League, like you mentioned, at the time it was called the A-League. Now it's USL. The season was basically just during the summer. So I just missed a couple of games on the front end. And then the entire summer I spent in Richmond. And then I went back and forth around playoff time, back to school to do school, and then come back, drive back. It was just like a 3.5 hour drive. And I was just making that trip every week to come back to train and play. And that was that first season, and made it happen. And I had a really good season. But my contract was wild, man. I think we had to negotiate. Everything was bonus, right? Performance based. But we had to negotiate just $200 a month. $200 a month, just like a flat, just so I would have something just in case I got injured, you know. And so I had a 200 flat, and then I got so much if I started, so much if I made the 18, so much if I got subbed in. I think if I made the 18, I made $50. If I got into the game, I made 100, and if I started, I got 150. And that was it. And
what if you won? What if you won?
Started like was that?
I said, what happens if you get a winning bonus?
No, nothing. No goal bonus or nothing. No. But I was staying with buddies. One of my buddies that I played at ECU with, was staying with his dad. He was from Richmond, and so I was living for free, which was awesome. And I started basically every game. So to me, I went from college to making some money playing soccer. It was very exciting, you know.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. I want to go back a little. There's you had a lot in there, and the funny thing is, we talk about the combine. My college coach, none of us got in, and we had a good team. We were ranked, and I remember he called the South Carolina coach on speakerphone and said, "Why didn't my guys get in?" He was like, "Carl, take me off speakerphone." And and he was like, no, I want them to hear it from you, Carl. I got Bobby Boswell and Alan Handy here with me. And he was like, Carl, take me off speakerphone. And he's like, no, tell him. And he was like, Carl, you didn't submit it in time. And then he said, and he goes, and even the guys you submitted, he's like, Boswell wasn't even one of them. I was like, thanks. And he goes, well, can we get him in? And he's like, no, Carl, you can't get him in. So I remember the combine being, I didn't expect to go, but I just remember thinking that was my funny story with him. You kind of skipped a big portion, not a big portion, but you didn't talk anything about PDL. And I know you had some PDL experience. That was where you were scoring goals left and right. So I think at the time it was called was it Raleigh CASL Elite? And that became what was it?
They called it Castle. So that
Castle.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. I'm still learning how to read. But then that was the team that ended up becoming the Rail Hawks, and now it's like it's all kind of crazy names. But did you have a pretty good experience doing that?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I kind of forgot about PDL. So that was basically just in the summers. You had to be playing at a university. And I think you couldn't have more than 3 guys from the same university. So or from the same school. And they did that so you just couldn't just could not have a whole team playing together.
The whole Clemson team on one team.
But it was great because it was in Raleigh. So you have all those schools. We had UNC, we had Duke, we had NC State. And at the time, those were the big time schools. UNC, one year I was in school, they won the championship. They won NCAA, and here we are. Myself, actually, I was the only one from ECU. Became some friends with some guys from Campbell, some of the smaller schools because they had to make a full team, and so some of us got on those teams, and that is where I gained a lot of confidence. I was able to play alongside of these kids that played at ACC schools, and top 10 schools in the nation, and like playing well with them. And I felt like I kind of belonged. And I gained a lot of confidence playing those summers. I used to drive. Raleigh's like an hour from my house, right? And so I used to drive an hour to training, hour back, probably 3 times a week we were training, and then wherever we went for the weekend. It was a lot, yeah. But it was definitely worth it. And the whole atmosphere was just great. We had a really, really knowledgeable coach. He had a ton of experience, and it almost felt like a professional atmosphere compared to college. But it was really cool.
What, and then so you kind of jumped ahead with you're talking about how you ended up at Richmond. Did you have any interest at all from MLS? Like, did you hear any rumors about supplemental draft, or it was just nothing?
Nothing. No. After the combine, we just didn't hear back. There's nothing there. So it's just elite.
And was Richie in Richmond with you?
Yeah, we played 1 season together.
So talk to me a little bit about. I mean, for those that don't know who Richie Williams is, I don't. I know Richie from crossing paths with him, but everyone's got great Richie stories, and it had to, for a guy in your position, it had to be a great guy to have. Just just from learning from him.
Yeah. So Richie was coming. I think it was his last season playing soccer ever, and it was my first season. And so because we talked about briefly that Eddie Pope went to the same high school as I did, and so I followed Eddie's career. He played at DC United. Richie was there, and so I knew who Richie was. I used to, every DC United game that was on, I tried watching, and Richie was always there. And so I knew who he was, and he was coming back to play for Richmond where he started, and it was great. We played in the middle together, and I did all the running for him. But I learned so much from Richie. Such a smart player, and he was awesome. At that time he couldn't move well, and Richie's a smaller guy, so it wasn't like his stride was long, and he was getting older, and he just but he just did so much with his communication and just his mind that I learned a lot from him. It was awesome to play alongside of Richie. Yeah.
Well, so you talk about you played a ton of games there. You had a great season, and then a lot of people don't realize this, but the U.S. Soccer Federation and the players were in a dispute back in 2005, around that time.
Yeah.
And they had to the players basically were locked out. So in order to field a team, they brought in, and I'm going to use the word scabs because that's Brian Namoff's word, and I've got a great story about that. They bring in scab players to fill the roster, and you're one of those guys. And I think that the joke was that one of your coaches told you, "Hey, you're going to get a call from the national team. It's not a joke. Like, this is real, and you're going to be going to men's national team camp."
Yeah, I was at the movies, and I was back at school because this was the off season for A-League. I was back at school finishing that last semester, and or actually, I think I was done at this point. And it was my girlfriend at the time, so it was still at school at ECU, so I was down visiting. I came out of the movies, and I had so many messages, like voicemails. I don't even know if my phone had text back then. Voicemails and missed calls. And so I look at it, and I had another number saved. I had my coaches, my assistant coach at Richmond. I listened to his voicemail first, and he said something, but I didn't even know what he was talking about. To be honest with you, it wasn't even in my mind, that, because I had no idea there was even a strike or anything. I had no idea. Obviously I know the national team and I know who the coach is and this and that, but I had no idea what was going on. And so I couldn't even understand his message. And then I listened to the other messages, and then I hear Bruce Arena, and then and I'm like, what is going on? So then I call my coach, and then I talk to him, and he explains it. And it was wild. We were the Scabs. They had to fill the team, so they called in A-League players, and they didn't even know much about us. They knew I had a good season. I think I was the youngest guy that they brought in. It was a lot of guys. Our team was really good at Richmond. It was probably like 6 or 7 of us Richmond players, and then like probably 5 or 6 from, like, I think Rochester was good at the time. John Wilson was on the
John Wilson.
Yeah, John Wilson. And so we go into camp. We just show up, and we're in LA all of a sudden, and everything's happening in a hurry because we gotta play a World Cup qualifier, dude. Not even like this isn't a friendly or anything like that. A World Cup qualifier against Trinidad and Tobago. That was the next game. And so we had like 2 weeks to prepare, and we're in our off season. So we're not even in shape. We're not even in good shape. We're not even, we hadn't been playing. I had been at school, like, partying. And so
you were still in good shape, though.
I mean, we were in shape, but we weren't in playing shape by any means. Yeah. I mean, our season was only maybe 2.5 months long.
Okay.
Yeah, so we weren't in good playing shape, but we show up, and we're just piecing things together. We're Bruce and the crew is putting us through, training like any other camp. And so we trained for about a week, and I remember we were out to eat, and I was out with my Richmond buddies, Richmond teammates, and I got a call. And it was Mooch. You remember Mooch? Yeah,
that's Glenn Meyernick.
Yep. And he called me, and he's like, "Are you by yourself?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can be." So I stepped away from the table, and I talked to him, and he said, "I don't know if you've heard yet, but the strike." Oh, actually, one of the buddies' wives had heard about it. She called him while we were at the table, and yeah, this is kind of funny. We make a movie off of this, I swear. So we're at the table, and we're having a beer, and because we found out the strike is over, so we order beers, and so we're like cheersing, and I get a call from Mooch, and Mooch he's talking to me on the side, and he explains that the strike is over. I don't know if you heard, but the strike is over. Like, yeah, such and such's wife just let him know we're out to eat, and he's like, but Bruce wants to keep you here. And so I'm thinking that, okay, we've been here for a week, we've been getting in shape, and now these guys are going to come in. So I thought they were going to do like a hybrid type thing, right? So, like, okay, some of these guys are pretty good. We're gonna keep some of them and bring in and make a team. I was a little naive thinking, but so then we go in the next morning. I didn't even say anything to the guys. We go in the next morning, and we're having a meeting, and Bruce explains that the strike is over, and we're done training, and he's just thanking us. He gave us uniforms to thank us, and it was really cool. And he's like, but I want to make an announcement. We decided to keep Clyde here. I was the youngest. I don't even know if I was 21. I might have been 21.
You better be. Like, you're drinking a beer.
Oh,
Clyde.
yeah. I think I was definitely. I was definitely. I was 21, and so he yeah, he said we're keeping Clyde here to train with the team, and that was it. I thought it was gonna be a few of us at least, and I was the only one that he kept.
And you got nervous as can be after that.
Oh my God, yo, that next day and a half, I was there by myself, waiting for all these guys to come in, and now all of a sudden, like I just played one season in the A League. I was just straight out of ECU, played one season in the A League, and now and this is the first team, Bob. This is like
the World Cup qualifiers. Yeah.
So the full team came in. The full team, like Clint, Mathis, Dempsey and Mike McGee. We were all the young guys. Mike McGee, Chad Marshall was in there, and we became close because we were, and they kind of cling to me and vice versa because we were around the same age, and it was one of their first camps as well, and then they had all these veterans. And the story got even crazier because there was only one other D mid in the whole camp, which was Pablo Mastroeni. And so it was just Pablo and myself, and that's it. And there were talks that I was going to be in the 18 because we only had one D mid in Pablo. And so that didn't end up happening. So then they moved Clint to D mid, Clint Dempsey to D mid, and the three of us started playing D mid in training, and then Clint and Pablo went to the game. But it was a wild experience, and then came back, and then I ended up going to another camp after. Oh, so sorry. Let me go back. That happened, and then all of a sudden, I just got so much attention.
I was gonna say now you're on everyone's radar.
Yeah. Now I'm on everyone's radar, and I go back to school, and then I was there. Back to East Carolina, and I was there for maybe a week and a half. And every day it was DC United had got my rights at the time. Some discovery. I can't even remember all those rules.
You were a discovery player because they discovered you because you played in Richmond.
Yeah, exactly. So DC had my rights. So if I was going to go to MLS, it was going to be DC. And every day after I got back was DC going back and forth with Richmond. And Richmond was not. And I got Dan Siegel. I ended up just signing with him. He seemed nice, so I signed with him. That was my agent my whole career, and he's great. I wouldn't have picked anyone else. He's awesome. I lucked out.
Dan is my agent too. So
yeah.
Hi Dan, we love you.
Yeah. And so DC's they're just going back and forth. The Richmond was just asking for so much, and I believe it was Dan that called Richmond and was like, "Look, you're gonna mess this up for Clyde." In the end of the day, and so they came to terms. One of the terms was DC had to go play a friendly every year in Richmond, and guys found out about that, and they were just like they were pissed because it was always in the middle of the summer, in the middle of the season, and it was the last thing we wanted to do, and everyone's like, why do we keep going to play this game? Why? And then they found out, and at the time I was one of the starters at DC after a few years, and they wouldn't even take the starters. But they had to take me, so it would be all the guys that to give them playing time, and then myself, and so it just became apparent that it was like the Clyde Simms game.
Yeah, that's awesome. You talked about getting called back in. You eventually did get a cap against England, which is really cool that you were able to you join those guys. I think you actually came on for Clint Dempsey, so
I did.
It's kind of funny that. You brought him up. So you're in DC now. I'm there with you. This is the start of our journey together. You played 7 seasons in DC. I added them all up. You 229 appearances. That ranks 6th all time. You're 1 ahead of me,
wow.
and you're 2 ahead of Richie Williams. Speak of the devil. So and there's some incredible names ahead of you. And it's crazy because when I look at, I always look at the games and the numbers and things like that. And the craziest thing to me wasn't just the number of appearances you played, but it was also you had 26 games in the CONCACAF Champions League.
Yeah.
And I just, I try to explain to people what that was like, especially the early ones. And we weren't even considered the early ones. They people before us were Eddie Pope was the original, right? But
Yeah.
what do you remember from that tournament
Oh
playing in
man,
that many games?
it was wild. You know what? We were so lucky to play in those games, and because it's so at the time it was. I mean, you know how it was. It was kind of like it was tough. It was tough first, but it was also like it messes with you. You know, you see these teams that do well even now, and then they got to play in this tournament at the beginning of the season, and it messes with their whole season. You know, it's tough. It's tough. You're playing midweek games every week for a while at the beginning of the season, and you're basically toast middle of the season. But to be able to travel like we did for those games and see and go experience those, me and my buddies, I got a group chat with some guys I play with in New England, and we talk about the national team, and I just talk about how difficult those games were. We're in places where we have a security guard on our floor with guns, and you're like, where are we at? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, what do we need all this for? We're in places where they're out singing, like you see with the national teams, like they're out they got bands playing outside of our hotel, trying to keep us up all night. And it's just very, very difficult. You're playing against teams that a lot of them weren't even that great, but it was just such a difficult game every time.
No,
Yeah.
I remember one of our trips. We had I remember Will Chang was there, and he bought everyone beers in the hotel after I think we got a win in Honduras. We had an Israeli military special forces team driving us around, and someone threw a snake on our bus when we weren't on the bus, and they couldn't get the snake off. And I just remember being like, what is happening here? And they're saying, focus on the game. You're like, people are they're throwing snakes at us.
Yeah. I remember, I don't know if you were here this one year, Bobby, they were going to take us out to show it, like at night. They were going to take us out, the security guys. And we go to get in the van, and I see them loading up a gun, and we were like, we're going to stay here. We're going to stay here. Like, it just wasn't, I mean, and they were just doing their jobs, but we were just like, no, we're just going to stay here and hang out at the hotel. But yeah, it was wild. Those were some wild adventures for sure.
Well, you got to realize I roomed with one of the crazy Russians. So I always had CONCACAF stories. There were nights where we did go out with those military guys and we just drove around town just to see it. And it was like you said, I look back now and I miss going with the guys. And I miss some of the atmospheres. I don't miss the meals being terrible and the referees being questionable and the lights going out and
not being able to drink the water.
People throwing bags of piss at you and things like that. But let's go back to you. I mentioned earlier you became kind of an Iron Man for DC. I think one year you only missed like 3 minutes of the game. Just talk to me a little bit about having some success with DC. You won 2 supporter shields there and an Open Cup, and it was you had a lot of success and you played a ton of games for DC.
Yeah. DC was it was great. I mean, obviously I was there during my prime. I was very fortunate. I mean, I look back now and realize how lucky I was to basically have the body, because some guys you see guys all the time, such good players, and they just can't catch a break with injuries, like just left and right injuries. And it's just like a lot of times it's the body. And I did a ton of training in the off seasons. So I remember Mateus, who I think is still back in DC now. He's finally back. And he was awesome. Like I would go like 4 or 5 times a week to his facility and where he was working. And we would just work on things to make me stronger so I would be able to sustain a full season, especially with all the games that we played. And I think that was a big factor as well. I mean, I learned that now, or I definitely know that now, doing what I do for a living with the studio and spin studio. And like, I have to continue to strengthen my body just so I can continue to do this as long as possible. And it's no different there. It's the little things with soccer that a lot of people don't realize. And those guys that are able to play a long time, a lot of it is they're blessed with a certain, athletic body that can withstand all of that movement and pressure, but also they do a lot of work behind the scenes to stay strong, to do that. And those years I did that. I was all in. It was something that I wanted to do. DC gave me a good contract after my first contract, and I just wanted to be the best player I could be at that time. And I think that had a lot to do with it as well.
Yeah, and you talk about taking care of your body, but when you play as many minutes and as many games as you did in that period, obviously I know you had some hernia surgeries, and your body kind of falls apart, and we're going to get to your kidneys, but I say every guy has some scars from when they played, and you have a lot. And I think on one level it's, people are like, oh my gosh, but on the other hand, it's kind of it's cool, right? Because you show your son, you say these are the sacrifices I made to chase this dream, and I think that's pretty cool. So I kind of wanted to get into the coaching changes at DC, but I don't want to put. It was a bit of a nightmare after I left. I know Tommy came in and gave us opportunities, but then he kind of dismantled a supporter shield winning group, and you were kind of there for all that, and you end up becoming the longest tenured guy there, and you go from playing next to Ben Olsen to playing for Ben Olsen. Can you just talk a little bit about those rough years, from a lot of success early to kind of fighting for playoff spots to even make it?
Yeah, it's tough, and Bob, you played on good team, well coached teams too, and it was really cool. It definitely helps me with what I do now and managing a business, to see the good and the bad. You almost learn more from the not so good coaches and support that you have versus the really good ones. A lot of times you take the really good ones for granted. I look back at the best years we had were under Peter, for sure. And Peter had, he was just the way he went about things was, it was good. I mean, we were the youngest guys, Bob, when we were there, and I don't know, Peter had a way about him that he had you wanting to run to a brick wall. It was wild, and he was great. And then you see other coaches that don't do it as well. I saw coaches in my career that were really it was all about them. It was about their success. To me, when Peter was at DC, I can't speak for Peter after DC. I know he had a lot more control in other spaces, but when he was at DC, I mean, he was throughout my career, he was one of the best coaches that I had, for sure. I mean, just the little things. But I remember when Peter used to walk out with us. All the other coaches, all the other coaches would be on the golf cart. Peter used to walk out, and he'd pick a new guy every day to walk with and just talk to him and about anything. He was great. Yeah,
I'd say Peter, you knew where you stood at all times. And he wouldn't sugarcoat it, but he was. I always say he was. I don't like using the word man enough anymore, but he was big enough, even though he's this little guy. He was big enough to tell you the things that you needed to hear, and you knew where you stood. And every guy on the team, whether they wanted to or not, had to walk with him one way or the other. He was. I think he understood the players from a player's standpoint.
He did, and he didn't tiptoe, like you said. And you know who else was like that? That I had a little bit of experience with was Bruce. Okay. And you always know where you stand. And he's gonna let you know ahead of time, you're not gonna be, if everybody's healthy, you're not gonna be a starter on this team. But this is where you're gonna be, and this is exactly why I need you. And he still finds a way to have you buy in. When I talk to people about coaches and how just the effect that they have on the team is so much bigger than a lot of people realize. You're with the coach every day. They have their finger on everything. They have control of everything, every little thing. And I've been a totally different player under one coach and then a totally different player under another, where I felt like I didn't have any control. It made me wonder if I was even a good soccer player sometimes, and then under another coach, I felt like I was on top of the world.
Yep.
And so
Well,
you see, yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting because you did have some success, and then 2011 comes around, and you don't get protected. They don't pick up your option, and were you ready for a change at that point, or were you upset about it, or just kind of indifferent on it?
Yeah, no. At that time, I wanted. I thought I wanted to coach after playing, and at that time, I was ready to see something else. Yeah, it was just it had just been time. I mean, I didn't expect them to pick up my option. I had some injuries towards the end of that run, and my salary was super high after my contract, and I didn't expect them to pick it up. And rather than wait to try to negotiate with them, I went ahead and went into the draft, the reentry draft at the time, and I was excited to see something new. And I ended up in New England.
Yeah,
New England picked me up. Yep.
and this your time in New England is very perplexing to me.
Yeah.
Because you only played in New England for 2 years before you retired, but I feel like when and I mentioned you're fifth, you're in the top 5, top 10 all time DC United minutes. But I feel like you're more of a New England guy, and maybe it's because you live there. And
Yeah.
I know you work with the team. You've done some media, and I know you coach a little on the side, and you do some stuff up there. And that's where your home is. That's where your family is. But it's just interesting because it wasn't like the 2 seasons you were there. You essentially are replacing an irreplaceable guy in Shaw Ree.
Yep.
And fans are. It's New England, right? They're Boston. They have opinions on everything.
Yeah.
But I feel like they embraced you, and you embraced that culture and that team. And I almost feel like you're more aligned with New England than you are with DC in your current life.
Oh, current life for sure. Yeah. Well, so when I came to New England, Strawberry was still here, and
Yeah, I knew that. I'm just saying.
Yeah. But we had I think a lot of reason why they embraced me, because the games we did play together, we had some really good games. I mean, we went in, and I remember when LA was really good in 2013, we went in and like beat them pretty good at their place early in the season. We were good, and then we had some injuries, and Shawry had to move to the back line, and then Shawry had some outs with the upper management, and he was a designated player at that point, and it's always tough. Shad, we call him Shaz. He played with Jay, and then Jay was the coach. He was Jay's captain, and then Jay was the coach, and so that's always a difficult dynamic, And so Shawry, they sent Shawry to Chivas USA at the time, and we didn't get much time together, but we had some good, really, really good games, and I was really excited about that because we battled our whole career,
Yeah.
Whenever DC played New England, and such a good player. I learned a lot from Shawry, but when we went in together, we were really excited. But it didn't last long. But yeah, I mean, I think New England, they appreciate guys that just go all out. They work hard. They're going to give their all to the team, and that's what I did. And that's where I basically tried. That's how I played anywhere I played. Basically, that was my job on the field, and I found comfort in that and playing that way. And that was just me.
Well, I said you were only there 2 seasons. You end up retiring early. Talk to me a little bit. I know your story better than most, but just for the people that aren't familiar with it, talk to them. Tell us a little bit about your kidneys and why you end up stopping early.
Yeah. So come to find out, I was born with a kidney disease, a super rare kidney disease, FSGS. That's the acronym. And so basically, it's a kidney disease. It's so rare that they don't really do much research on it because it's just not worth it. That's how rare it is. And it just takes away your kidney function over time. It can happen really quickly, or it can happen super slow. And mine was super slow. So we discovered mine when I was young. I was going to my pediatrician, and they noticed protein in my urine. Did some tests. protein in the urine is not uncommon for young kids. So they give you a steroid, prednisone, and that usually knocks it out, and then you're good to go. And I remember they said at that time, if it doesn't work, he probably has FSGS. And sure enough, it didn't work. And so we just went about, I went about life knowing that I had FSGS. I didn't know for sure. I mean, it was like 99.9% that I had FSGS. We didn't do a biopsy until in between my 2 seasons with the Revolution. We did a biopsy, and then I was finally diagnosed with FSGS, but we pretty much knew. And so they told me when I had it, the only thing you can do is slow it down. One, the things you do to slow it down is keep an eye on your blood pressure, exercise, and drink lots of water. And I mean, fortunately, I was a professional soccer player, so I was able to stay active, my whole life. And then I would take medication for blood pressure to keep that down, because the way it works, the higher your blood pressure goes, the worse it makes your kidneys. The worse your kidneys get, the higher your blood pressure. So they just keep going like this. So if you can control the blood pressure, you can keep the kidney function somewhat okay. And so throughout my career, probably when I started playing professionally, I was probably already at like 50% function, kidney function. Towards the end of my career, when my last year or so in New England, it had gotten down to 20%. Once it gets to a certain percent, you got to start dialysis, or you need to start talking about getting a transplant. And so what happens with your kidneys release all your toxins. Every time you urinate, the kidneys are flushing all the toxins out of your body. And toxins are in your body, coming in your body all the time. Your kidneys work well, it gets all of it out. That's why you feel good. And so the kidneys weren't doing this job to its full ability. So I would have toxins just build up in my blood, and you don't feel it. You just get tired. You're really tired. Whenever I get little injuries, Bob, it took me like so much longer to recover. I'd be sore after games for probably another day and a half than other guys, stuff like that. But you got used to it. I used to take naps every day.
Yeah, I know. I used to come over every day,
yeah.
and you'd take a nap. Jamil and I would just hang out.
Yeah, but I thought I was just somebody that needed naps, but that was it. That's all you really knew. And then we just watched it. Whenever I had to take like painkillers or anything like that, my kidney function would go down, and then I stopped taking it, and then it come back up. So I realized how bad that was for me. Toradol shots, that would crush it. And then I wouldn't do it. It'd come back up, and it was so difficult because you want to play. You're there to play. Like this was fun. This was really good fun, and you want to be there for your team and your teammates, and you want to play. And so there'd be times where I had to make a decision to do some stuff to continue to play versus not play that you would normally do, that everyone else was doing. But they would affect my kidneys, more so than anyone else, because I had my kidney disease. And so it was tough the entire career. And then towards the end of my career in New England, it just got to a point where I would get I used to go to sleep perfectly fine. I'd wake up, couldn't even walk. Like maybe I got kicked in practice the day before, and adrenaline, whatever, you didn't feel it. Next morning I wake up and it's swollen. And I have to do all of this stuff before practice to get to a point where I could train, just to train. I had turf toe at the end of my career, and that basically did it. Like that was the most frustrating thing. That's what you see.
And did you tell teams? I mean, I guess you weren't completely sure, but did you feel like if you were upfront and honest with these teams about, hey, I might have an issue, that do you feel like you would have been punished?
Oh no, well they knew. So
everyone knew about it.
Everyone knew, yeah. Like Goody, at DC, I was kind of on my own. And I was a kid, I was, and it's one of those things, out of sight, out of mind. Like I didn't want to think about my kidneys. I felt fine. And it was just like something I'm just gonna, I'm gonna play and I'm gonna deal with it later. When I came to New England, and I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. When I came to New England, and obviously everyone knows about the hospitals up here and the care that you can get up here, and the knowledge. The first thing, my physicals, they knew about my kidney disease, and they set up appointments for me with a nephrologist. and they made sure I went to all my appointments. They scheduled them. If I had to miss practice, I missed practice and go to my appointment. It was awesome. It was awesome. And I didn't really get a grip on my kidneys until I came to New England. And that is one really good thing I have to say about the Revs, in the way I was treated with my kidneys. And they never held it against me. They always did everything they could to make sure that I was going to be okay and keep an eye on it. And so that's when I got a real grip on my kidneys, and it got to a point where it was getting low. And then I had a chance to go play one more season. I was talking with San Jose, actually, and then it got to a point where I was like, I don't know if I want to. If I do anything, it's going to be 1 year, and I don't know what kind of situation it's going to be. I'm going to move all my stuff out west for one season. I always wanted an excuse to live in California, but at that point, I just called it. I remember calling my she's one of my best friends, and my ex at the time, Katri. And I remember calling her and I said, I think I'm done playing. And she supported me in that. And we weren't together at the time, but still really good friends. Yeah, we can get into that. But and then I called Dan right after that, and then that was it. And it's so crazy. I never forget. I got off the phone with Dan, and I mentioned I was having trouble with my toe, and it was just a pain.
It stopped hurting.
As soon as I got the phone with him, I didn't feel it. It was crazy. I feel like it was stress just built up, and then I let it go, and then it was good.
Well, you brought up Katri. Talk to us a little bit about, you end up needing to have a liver transplant. I know she made a big sacrifice, and talk to me about finally getting not just one but two kidney transplants.
Yeah, two. So I had another friend, Portia. I was really good friends with her and her husband when I played in DC. They lived in Baltimore, and we became really, really good friends. Portia was a nurse, and when I needed a kidney, she donated a kidney. I didn't get her kidney. They have this thing where they can they put you in a program, they match you up. So I was getting this kid was donating a kidney to his mom. Portia's kidney went to the mom, and I got the guy's kidney. He was basically the same age as me. So it worked out really well. And then the kidney just did not take. Portia's kidney went to the lady, and hers was awesome. I think she's still. I've met that mother and son, and I believe she's still doing really good. The mother, but my kidney did not work. It just did not. It didn't take for whatever reason, and that was like the worst week ever. So they put it in. They go to check it out the next day. They have to go in and do another surgery the next day to try to make some adjustments. So then we go back in, and they're just waiting for it to come back to maybe like 2 days. And then I had a vein bust inside, and it was just literally something out of a movie. I never seen blood like projectile, just straight out of my scar and straight out of my stomach. They had to go in again, and then when I woke up that time, they had taken it out. They just said it's just not working, and so I put me back on dialysis, and I went on dialysis for like another year, and we just waited for another kidney, and so we were waiting for a kidney. And I was registered in Georgetown in DC and in MGH in Boston. So whoever got a kidney first, I would go. I got another call from Georgetown maybe like a year later. And they're like, we have a kidney for you. We're going to schedule a surgery, and we're going to call you back. And it was really exciting. So I called my family, and that was it. And I told them, I said, they got a kidney, but we're not going to tell anyone this time. Because it was big news when I was getting my first kidney, and it didn't work out. And we were extra bummed because it was all in the press, and like everyone was so excited, but then let down. And so this time we weren't going to tell anyone. Right. And so Katri calls me like the next day, and she says, why didn't you tell me you got a kidney? And so Katri still talked to my sisters, their friends. And I'm like, one of my sisters, like, they have such big mouths, like they've obviously told Katri that I got a kidney. And I said, well, we weren't going to tell anyone this time around. We were just going to, after it was a success, then we were going to tell people. And I said, well, how'd you find out anyways? And Katri said, because I'm the donor. And that was, it was wild. That was a wild time. Yeah. So another situation where I didn't get Catri's kidney, her kidney went to someone else so that I could get a kidney. So they started this program because so many people can get better matches. Like if you wanted to donate a kidney to me and we weren't a match and weren't anything close, you just would not be able to donate. But now that they have this program, you could donate and your kidney would go to someone that you're more compatible with, and I would get a kidney because you donated. So basically you'd be donating on my behalf, and that's how it works. So it worked out really well, and I'm still with the same kidney. My kidney came from Indiana, and I've met my donor. She's a nurse as well, and yeah, it's just a great situation. I've followed her story, and she's had 2 kids since she donated, since I've gotten her kidney, and yeah, we're like close friends now. That's cool.
Yeah, it'll be six years in December, right?
6 years December. Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So,
Yeah.
And then there's let's wrap it up with just one good story where it kind of transitioned to what you're doing now. You kind of hinted at studio and cycling, but there was a point where really fitness saved your life, and it kind of leads perfectly from that story about your kidneys into what you're doing now. So tell us about how being fit saved your life.
Yeah, so I was in my kidney function was low, and my nephrologist told me, he said the only reason why he was like, you probably still have a good like 2 years before you need to go on dialysis. He said the only reason why you would need to get started dialysis any sooner is if you get really, really sick, right? No exaggeration, a week or 2 later, I got really, really sick. And then I had a really bad stomach bug. And while I was in the hospital, they didn't know at the time, but they were giving me something that I was allergic to, vancomycin. It's an antibiotic, routine antibiotic that a lot of people take, and very successfully, but I was allergic to it. We didn't know. And they were just kept pumping this into me, and I was getting really, really sick. I got temperatures up to 107.5. And so I never forget that day. There were probably 7 people in my room throwing ice on me. My nurse is crying, and I'm like, and I felt fine, and I'm like, what is going on? But when I saw her crying, that's when I got really scared. But I was fine. I came out of it fine. The next morning, my doctor came in. He was like, the only reason why I think that you, 1, survived, and 2, didn't come away with like brain damage or something like that is because you're so fit. And I had just come off soccer season. And that at that point we had already decided to do the studio, but that like solidified it. Like, that is my goal. I know a lot of people, there's a lot of different philosophies around fitness and body positivity and this and that. But to know what being actually fit did for me, I wanted to bring that to other people. And because we've all been in better shape and then in worse shape. We've all been there, even myself. And you feel better 9 times out of 10 when you're in shape. I mean, physically, you feel better. You get up, you can move better. You can withstand more things during the day. And obviously, for me to withstand what I did in the hospital, just because I was so fit, it was just something went off in my head. And so ever since then, I've been full time at the studio. Like you mentioned before, I do some other things. I coach like one-on-one soccer with kids. I love doing that in small groups. I can't commit to a team. I love to coach a team, but I can't commit to a team because I just work so much with the studio that with a team you have to have a set time that you're meeting. I can shift things around for one-on-one training. So I do that. I do radio for the Revolution. So I'm on the 98.5 The Sports Hub. And so myself and Hardy, he's the personality. I'm just like the analyst. So I talk.
No, you're the personality, Clyde. Yeah. tell people it's called Revved. And you have 6 locations now? We do.
Yep.
Yes. So
and during COVID, it's been like an assortment of different things. We've been doing pop-ups here and there. And so it's Revved. REV is in Victor, apostrophe D. D is in dog. So Revved, apostrophe D, Revved indoor cycling. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I know you also have a podcast. If you enjoy listening to Clyde, it's Born for Greatness, a Repped podcast. You can hear him there. He already told you can hear him on the radio, calling games. And, I just encourage those that are in the New England area, go see him at the studio. Cause there's fewer people in this world that will put a smile on your face like Clyde will. So,
I try.
Listen, I can't thank you enough. It's amazing. Your story is just so incredible. And it's incredible that I think the most fascinating thing in this I knew a lot about a lot of your life before, but I didn't realize the inductions into the Hall of Fames. I think that's just a huge honor. It couldn't have gone to a more deserving person. And, you were always a great teammate, and you're always a great professional. So I'm not surprised that, you're having success and your new passion. And, I just can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast today.
Anytime, Bobby. I appreciate you, man.
It's Clyde Simms, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Play by Players. Visit playbyplayerspod.com for more episodes or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
This has been a production of the MLSPA. Learn more at mlsplayers.org.